Hello, my name is Febrina Kusumaningrum, and in this occasion, I will present the research titled Translation Technique of Illocutionary Act of the Cruella's movie main character dialect. And this presentation is submitted to fulfill the research and seminar proposal of translation subject. So the background study of the research, the transition technique of illocutionary act of the Cruella's movie main character dialogue or monologue is this. We will talk about why illocutionary act and why transition technique. The first one, why illocutionary act. Before we jump into the illocutionary act, we need to know more about speech act. And according to Austin, speech act is a kind of action that are performed when people utter something. And the speech act has three degrees, including locutionary act, illocutionary act, and perlocutionary act. This research will focus on illocutionary act because illocutionary act is an utterance in addition to saying and informing something that can also be used to do something as long as the situation of the speech is carefully considered. And Soar said that there are representative, directive, commissive, expressive, and declarative illocutionary acts for the classification of illocutionary act. And why illocutionary act is used in this research. Illocutionary act can portray the character development of the Cruella's main character, from a kind Estella to read Cruella through the language. So the context of the character development of this main character is this. The main character of the movie is named Estella, later known as Cruella, because there is some sort of character development. In this case, it's a development of personality. So through the conflicts in the story, the character develops from having a kind, good personality to ambitious, rude, and cruel personality, from Estella to Cruella. And speech acts, specifically illustrationary acts, can portray the character development of the main character through the language, specifically monologue and dialogue that can be seen from the movie, in both English version and Indonesian dubbing version. The second one is why transition technique of dubbing. So, what is transition technique? It is a technique the translator used to translate the text. And according to Molina and Albir, there are 18 techniques of translation, including adaptation, amplification, borrowing, call, compensation, description, discursive creation, established equivalent generalization, linguistic amplification, linguistic compression, literal, modulation, particularization, reduction, substitution, transposition, and variation. And by looking at the technique that the translator used in this Indonesian dubbing version of the movie Cruella, the researcher want to validate the consistency or the shifting of the illocutionary act found in the data. Thus, the speech act, especially illocutionary acts owned by the different personalities of Estella and Cruella, is shifted in the dubbing transition. So, why dubbing? The dubbing is used as an object because the researcher wants to focus on the spoken language because language can employ more of the characterization rather than a written language that is accomplished in the Indonesian subtitle of the movie because the spoken language also requires intonation so there is more uh, subjects, more things that can be represented throughout the spoken language. In this case, is portrayed by the dubbing. Next is the research questions. There are three kinds of research question that will be presented in this research. including the categorization, transition process, and effect. The first one is categorization, and the categorization is what kinds of illocutionary acts of the Cruella's main character, dialogue or monologue in the source text, English version, and target text, Indonesian dubbing version. The second one is process. We use the theory of transition technique used in Cruella's main character, dialogue or monologue in the source text, English version, and target text, Indonesian dubbing version. The third one is the effect. Do the illocutionary acts of Cruella main character dialogue or monologue consistent or having a shift in the target text translation? In this case is the Indonesian dubbing version. Moving into the conceptual framework, this conceptual framework is divided into four major parts. The first one is input or the translational text. The source text, as said before, is the English audiovisual text of the movie Cruella, and the target is the Indonesian dubbing of the movie Cruella. The first process is the linguistic analysis of source text. The linguistic theory that used in this research is the illocutionary act. So the process is going to be classifying the illocutionary acts of Cruella's main character dialogue or monologue. The second process is comparative analysis. In this case, is using the theory of transition technique. So, what is the transition technique of illocutionary act of Cruella's main character dialogue or monologue? And the output or the results is um, talking about the consistency of or shift of illocutionary acts of Cruella's main character of the Indonesian dubbing translation. So there are some previous research of illocutionary acts or transition technique. Um, there are also both topic that is used in some of the previous research. I will mm, talking about the three of the previous research. First one is by Yulia Sri. The topic is transition techniques and pragmatic equivalence in Indonesian translation of humorous utterances in Walt Disney Donald Duck comics. So the linguistic aspect is humorous utterances, and she was talking about the transition techniques and talking about the pragmatic equivalence as the output. The second one is by Sakul Bimorat, the analysis of transition techniques and transition quality of the speech act in the Little Prince novel. Similar to this research is talking about the direct speech act. The theory of transition use is also the same, transition techniques, and the transition quality of the output. And the third one is by Akista and Octaviandri, transition techniques of assertive speech act in Frozen 2 movie subtitle. So, the same transition technique and assertive speech act. The research method. The first one is research type. This research applies a descriptive qualitative method. The majority of the data from this study will be involving a significant amount of gathered data through explanation and description. Thus, the research will be use the descriptive qualitative method. The data and data source, including two texts, source text and target text. The source text is the English audiovisual text of the main character dialogue monologue of the movie Cruella, and the target is its Indonesian dubbing. And the source is available on official platform Disney Plus Hotstar, both the English version and the official dubbing version. Therefore, the data of this research will be in the transition technique found in the illocutionary act of the Cruella's main character dialogue or monologue and its consistency or shift in the Indonesian dubbing version. And the process of the data collection technique is there's a six. Sorry, there's a typo. The six. The first one is to watch and compare the English and the Indonesian version. The second one is to juxtapose the data of illocutionary acts. This particular process is used by using the theory of illocutionary act, the linguistic aspects. The third one is to determine the transition technique. In this particular process is using the transition theory, which is the transition technique proposed by Molina and Albier. And the fourth one is to measure the equivalence or shift in the illocutionary act transition. Next is to describe and interpret the findings, explore the insights found in the analysis. And then the last is to draw conclusion based on the research findings. To summarize the key insights found in the transition method employed by the initial subtitle of Cruella movie and the transition technique of evocationary act found in the main character's dialogue or monologue of the movie Cruella. There are two example of data and data analysis that I will present. The first one is the dialect that run in this movie by Estella and her mother. So the source tag is why are you in the best dress? The speech act, the illocutionary speech act, is the directive speech act, specifically the question. And the target language is kenapa ibu memakai gaun cantik. The illocutionary act is the same, the directive, and it's a question too. And the technique to translate this utterances is the amplification technique. So the explanation is it is an directive speech act question because the context explaining that Estella asked her mother asked about why are you in the best dress. The second one, the explanation is it is an amplification technique because the translation explicates the word ibu in the target language from the word you in the source language. And using the amplification technique, there is no shift in the type of illocutionary act because the DT retains the directive speech act from the ST. The second example of data and data analysis is also the dialect between Estella and her mother. The source language say that looks better without, I think. So the type of illocutionary act is the directive speech act, specifically the opinion. The target language is kurasa lebih baik tak dipakai. Also the same form as the source language. And the technique used is the compensation technique. So in the explanation, it is an directive speech act opinion because the context explaining that Estella gives opinion to her mother looks better without I think so. I think is the key of the opinion. It is a composition technique because the transition move the word I think of the source language into kurasa in another position. So from the back into the top in the target language to achieve more naturalness of the transition. And using the composition technique, there is no shift in the type of illocutionary act because it retains the directive speech act form from the ST. Here are the references that I use, and thank you. That's all for this presentation. I hope you can give me comments regarding the presentation. Thank you.